I'm going to be showing you how to make a cheese I just recently learned on my trip to Peru. Now, I've been making cheese for well over 2 decades, coming on to 25 years now, and discovering a new cheese was really quite exciting. And this comes from the northern city of Cajamarca, and it's a traditional cheese there called Mantecoso. It's a fresh white cheese that you make one day and eat the next. So we're going to start with our cheese making by sterilizing the pot. It only takes a little tiny bit of water because we're just going to put the lid on and steam it all up. And once the water comes to the boil, just allow it to boil and steam up the pot inside for a couple of minutes. The water is already boiling now, and steam will help to sterilize the pot. All the ingredients need to be very, very clean for cheese making. Right, well now the pot is clean to receive our milk. And this is the milk of my choice. My local milk here is full cream Jersey milk, and it makes a lovely rich creamy cheese. And I'm going to be using 6 litres of milk altogether. To put the cooker on again, but this time on a very, very low heat. And slowly we warm up the milk to the desired temperature of 32 degrees. Now, while that's happening, we're still going to be busy because all the utensils that come in contact with the milk will need to be sterilized by pouring boiling hot water over it. But before I do that, I'd like to show you what the cheese actually looks like and how much cheese you get for your 6 litres of milk. Look at this little beauty, and you can see I've already taken a little bit out. And that's okay because I'm not sharing it with anyone this time, it's all mine. So what I'm going to do now to describe the taste of this cheese, because nobody can sample this one, can they? We're online now. So I'm just going to cut a little piece out and describe how this cheese actually tastes. I'm just taking a little wedge out. It's become really nice and firm. It's been refrigerated now for a couple of days. I think you'll enjoy this one. It's just lovely, soft, creamy, very mild. It's got a bit of a tanginess to it, and I can just taste the salt that I put on the cheese. This is really nice. Well, I've got the milk to 32 degrees, and that's our starting temperature. And in the meantime, I have been rinsing with hot water this ladle, which is what I call my holy stirrer. And that's a paddle that is good for stirring, especially soon when we need a good stirrer. But first of all, we're going to add a cheese culture to our cheese milk. And originally this comes from Cheese Links, their home cheesemaker suppliers, and they do mail order. And this is the original sachet it came in, but I do prefer them to put them into little specimen jars because it's much easier to control how much comes out. So we're going to add a bit of this culture to our cheese milk, and I just want you to have a good look at how little we actually need of this culture. Can you see that? The tiniest little bit. So you can't even measure it. So we're just going to sprinkle that into our milk and give it a little stir. And this puts the microbial life into our milk that will then eventually bring on the flavour and also influence the texture of our cheese. So the next step we're going to do is to grab a glass with a little bit of water, and we need about 20 ml, doesn't have to be totally accurately measured. And then we're going to add rennet. Now this is a big bulk pack, I do a lot of cheese making, but these they come in smaller sizes, okay? So we're going to just pour some of this rennet into the lid, and I have a syringe here, and the syringe is going to take up 2 ml of this rennet because we will need 2 ml to set the milk into a solid curd. Pull the rest back, and that goes back in the fridge. So now we're going to add the rennet to our cheese milk, and now the holy stirrer really comes into its own. It's important to stir the milk vigorously in a figure of 8, and that means you're getting lots and lots of movement right throughout that milk to receive the diluted rennet all at once, but keep on stirring, stirring, stirring for a good 1 minute. And that will distribute the rennet all over throughout the milk to then allow that milk to set into a curd. Long enough, and we'll just put the lid on and come back in about 40-45 minutes to check the curd, and it should be set by then. Well, I've just come back to check the pot to see if the curd has set, and it certainly has. It's taken 40 minutes. This is a good indication that when you just tilt the pot, you can see it's all come away in one solid curd, and often you'll just see it pulling a little bit away from the edge of the pot. So it's definitely set. So the next step is to get our curd cutting knife and cut the curd in 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter cubes. And by doing this, we're separating the curd from the whey. because eventually the curd will become our cheese. They are the milk solids from the milk. And it consists of casein, the hard, firm protein in the milk. Now I'm using this flat disc ladle to do the horizontal cuts because we want cubes. I might do them as many times as I can till we get to the bottom. And now we have cut the curd. And you can already see little bits of whey being released from the curd, and that's exactly what we're after. We're going to let it sit just for a few minutes and then gently heat it to 36 degrees. And it looks like I'm there now. And I have allowed the heat and the gentle stirring to start separating the curd from the whey just that little bit more. And now I'm just going to let it sit for perhaps a quarter of an hour or so, and then we'll do the next step. And so now it's just a matter of transferring the curd into the colander, but to help things along, I have some cloth that I'm going to sit in the colander, because after a time of draining through here, I'll be able to hang it up to drain further before doing a light pressing. So this curd, after being drained of all the excess whey, will then become our Mantecoso cheese. Well, look at all the whey that's left over. And of course there'll be a whole lot more in the pot after the initial draining. Do we throw the whey away? No way. You hear the chickens in the background. Well, that's the rooster. Got a few chooks there, and I feed the whey to the chickens mixed in with some pollard in a wet mash, and they're pumping out the eggs. High protein. The next step is to just take the cloth away from this curd. It's become quite solid now. Sounds like a baby's bottom, doesn't it? And just cut it up into rough chunks. Ready to go through a blitzer of some sort. Now, I have used the NutriBullet. I took that with me to Peru, but it meant I had to do it in little stages. But because I have a Thermomix, I can just chuck it all in there all at once and make mincemeat out of it. Here the macerated curd here from our Mantecoso, and it's all being put through the bullet in various stages, but if you have a Thermomix, maybe in 1 or 2 stages for a 6-litre cheese. And the next step is to then put it out onto the board, and this is the part I don't really look forward to, but it's an important part of the cheese making process. You got to get your hands on there and start kneading the curd. as that actually influences the texture, the final texture of the cheese. I see it's just a little bit on the wet side. I just wonder if I could have used a little bit of a heavier weight, maybe double it to 4 kilo to get a little bit more of that whey out. So yes, it's not a perfect Mantecoso here. A Peruvian cheesemaker would not be very happy if they see this. But I tell you what, it still turns out a lovely cheese. And now for the final step of our cheese making. You can actually just shape it into a blob, or what I do is I actually press it into a neat form in one of my cheese baskets. And so I have got here 2 identical cheese baskets that are perfect for a 5 or a 6 litre cheese. And that sits on the bottom plate. Just show you the bottom plate, it's got drainage holes in it. And then the first basket I will just put some of our butter muslin on. And I mustn't forget to salt the cheese. This is the salting time now before the final shaping. So we'll put in some of our Himalayan salt. And just work that in a bit, but that will work its way right through the cheese. And so we'll just transfer this into our cheese basket here. And it will become as firm as the cheese I just showed you before. And the longer you leave it to mature in the fridge, the firmer and more tastier it will become. But this is all same day still, and tomorrow you'll be eating this Mantecoso cheese. And now we'll just fold over one layer of the butter muslin here and place this follower basket on top. And the top plate of our mould press. Can you see the principle of a press like this? You can choose as much weight as you want on this, or as little to suit the cheese. So yes, I want to do a final pressing overnight, but heavier than I had before, but not too heavy. One typical weight of for my cheese making is 15 kilo, and that would be too much. So I'm thinking about 5 kilo, and that means 5 litres of water in bottles to then put the weight on top. And one of the 3 litre bottles I used for the cheese making. So we've got 5 kilo of weight on here, and we'll end up with a lovely pressed Mantecoso cheese in the morning. I can't wait to see what my new Mantecoso cheese looks like. I bet you're a bit curious as well. So let's take these water bottle weights off. Nice and firm. Now with the cloth, we can wriggle it out and uncover our cheesy. And I can see it needs a little bit of a trim just to get the little ragged edges off. And then it's ready to go in the fridge but let me just try a little piece first. See how it compares to the other one. The other one's already aged a few days. So let's just have a look at this little beauty here. A little bit milder, but actually very comparable to the first one. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video and that you're inspired to make your own. I'm just going to now expand a little bit on a few things like what kind of milk is best for your cheese making and have a look at the cultures in detail. So I'll see you again soon. Well, I've got here now a display of the utensils you will need for cheese making. Let's start with the milk, and I did show you already, this is the milk of my choice. Here on the Sunshine Coast we have the Kahlua pasteurized only Jersey milk in abundance around here, and it's a beautiful cheese making milk. And just be careful that you don't have homogenized milk. It should be pasteurized only or raw if you have your own supply. Another good milk here on the Sunshine Coast is Mullaney Dairies, and that's made from largely Guernsey milk. So they're both A2 milk, which are very good milks to use for your cheese making because they have very high protein, and that's what you want to make your cheese and have it rich and creamy. Now this pot is just so perfect for your home cheese making. It's a 7.6 litre pot, and it's easily available from Kmart and Big W, and it only costs $9. Just a very thin stainless steel pot, not for cooking, but it's a stock pot, very good for your cheese making. And let's now have a look at the rennet that I use. There are various types of rennet around, and various sources where you can get your cheese cultures. Now I have my supply come from Cheese Links in Victoria. I always get the mail order, no problem at all. But if you like to have the convenience of a shop, go and see your home brew shop, and then most likely they will have cheese cultures there, or perhaps even the bigger health food stores. And another online culture provider is Green Living Australia. Now here, this is the cheese bacteria that I use. It's a mesophilic cheese making bacteria. It's just a fine creamy colour powder, and as I pointed out before, only very little is needed, and that is absolutely plenty there for our 6 litre cheese. And let's have a look at the utensils here. You saw me use these. This is my holy stirrer. I get this from a homebrew shop as well. And it's just perfect for stirring with, but you can certainly have a wooden spoon with a hole in it. That's fine too. And then here is really a spatula, also available from Big W and Kmart in the kitchen section, around $8. Perfect for cutting the curd. And here is the scoopy slotted ladle. As you could see, you need something to transfer the curd out of the pot with drainage. And here is my flat disc ladle for doing the horizontal cuts. And then here, that comes from Cheese Links, and that gives you that lovely pattern imprinted into your cheese as well. You don't need a lot of equipment Most of it you've probably got lying around the house already, or can get the milk from your local supermarket. And I really do wish you all the best in your endeavours to make this cheese. And I'm sure you won't look back, and perhaps even try other cheese types as well. Thank you for watching.